Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com. Welcome to the reprehensibles. Welcome to the unauthorized. Welcome to the VFM, to the Dread Ilk, and a warm welcome to the Bears. Today, I got an email from John Trent. He's the guy who runs Bounding into Comics. And it's a really nice alternative to the two major comic sites. I can't remember the name of one of them. The other one's called Bleeding Cool. But unlike the other ones, it's not this SJW-dominated site. It's largely apolitical, but it does cover the various deplatformings and so forth, which may be the reason that it's now been deplatformed by Facebook. Now, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because, unlike the other comic sites, Bounding into Comics has always had a fairly equal policy with regards to the different comics companies. It covers stuff from Marvel, it covers stuff from DC, it covers stuff from Image, it covers stuff from lots of different companies that I've never heard of, and it also covers Arkhaven's comics. It's the only place, the only comics devoted site where you will actually see reviews of Arkhaven comics other than Amazon. And I think that, let me get to that in a bit. John sent me an email letting me know this had happened and asking if I would help let people know about it. And I said, of course. He's always been great about reviewing our stuff and so forth. But I did tell him it's not going to do any good. There's no way that trying to tell people about yet another deplatforming is going to make any difference at all. Think about, this is what I tell people when it happens to them. Think about what you did when Alex Jones was deplatformed, when Owen Benjamin was deplatformed, when all these other people were deplatformed. How many people quit using Twitter because I was deplatformed 2 or 3 years ago? There were a few Dread Ilk who did, a few VFM, but essentially no one. So other people are going to care about your deplatforming exactly as much as you cared about all the people who were deplatformed before you. So don't count on this groundswell of outrage causing Twitter or Facebook or Google or anyone else to restore your account. I'm not saying it never happens, but it only happens to people like Donald Trump or Jordan B. Peterson, who have very, very large followings. And by large, I mean in the millions. And sometimes that's not even enough. Just ask PewDiePie. I ban people who say that Owen is losing his mind, so I don't recommend doing that here. I've talked to Owen frequently. He's definitely not losing his mind. And so I don't appreciate people coming on here and trying to create false narratives and push false narratives in the comments. Anyhow, if you're on Facebook, I would recommend that you get off it. Don't support it. They are attempting to destroy your nation, your civilization, your faith, and your country. Why would you want to be a part of that? I got off Facebook a long time ago. So, when you look at what's happening, this is why it's so important to support other platforms. This is why it's so important to actively seek to develop new platforms. That's why we're developing, that's why we're developing Social Galactic. That's why we're not dependent on PayPal. You can't use these sites and these services that are that unreliable. And I've been talking to some of these Chinese payment processors, some of these Chinese and Eastern European social media companies, telling them how to crush these Western companies, and they're going to. They're licking their lips at the way that the Western social media companies are not treating their customers right. And so Milo's not coming to unauthorized TV right now. He is working on another project, and it's something that we support. And in fact, speaking of Milo, Middle Rages, his latest short, is now available literally as of about 5 minutes ago on Amazon. And so I'm not sure if C. Robinson's being sarcastic or not, but he says, everyone needs to consider other platforms. Your platform. Ours is just one of them. You guys know that I'm not a big fan of Gab. We had some differences of opinion with the folks that we were doing the first version of Social Galactic with, but I would encourage you, if those guys meet your needs, I would encourage you to use them. Use IDCA. IDCA's great if you've got a group and you need to communicate with the group and you don't want to share it with the rest of the world. And so this is interesting. The Rational Rise says, unauthorized TV inspired me to set up rationalrise.tv as a space for like minds away from the hand-wringing social engineers. Keep the content coming. I'm going to start an Aussie hunting show on mine. That's hilarious. Good for you, and congratulations. Hippocratic Oath said, CNN will say Vox is colluding with Chinese and Russian payment processors. Oh, I'm doing worse than that. I mean, I've appeared on Chinese English state TV and talked to them about the tariffs. I think I may have even been on there twice. I've been invited many times. I'm usually too busy to arrange to do it. I don't do a lot of media, but I will literally do communist television before I will talk to the mainstream media in the US. Yes, I do think there are nuclear bombs. What browsers do you all think? No browsers are safe. The only way to be safe is stay off the internet entirely and to not have anything like Alexa or whatever in your house. Let's see. John Yossarian says, why is Sargon campaigning for the EU Parliament when his platform is leaving the EU in the first place? Because that's how you blow up the European project. I'm not a big fan of Sargon, but I wouldn't hesitate to vote for him as MEP. Wyo Paul says, just finished Throne of Bones. Excellent. Thanks. I'm glad to hear it. And you should check out A Sea of Skulls and Summa Helvetica while you're at it. But yeah, we're all about building platforms, and we're all about encouraging others to build platforms, and we're all about supporting people who are building those other platforms. We want to encourage people to use them. We want to encourage people to do that. And so, before people say, well, you're still on YouTube, and your blog is still on Blogger. That's right. And they will be there until they kick me off, because I am waiting for them to do that, because there are certain things I can't do until they actually kick me off. And if you talk to Indiegogo, then you'll know exactly what I am waiting to do. And that's what I'm telling everybody who is deplatformed to do. Go after them. Kill them with the death of 1,000 cuts. I'm speaking metaphorically and legally here, of course. These companies cannot survive 10,000 lawsuits, especially when they're wrong in all of them. They can't survive 5,000 arbitrations. California law requires them to pay for all the expenses. So, every single, not every single company, a lot of these companies actually require you, as part of their terms of service, to go to arbitration. That is actually a vulnerability on their part, because they don't believe that anybody's going to be pissed off enough to spend $250. Well, they're beginning to find out otherwise. Ben Darling said, Milo did some good JBP bashing yesterday, pointing out how he always goes silent when something happens to someone on the right. He said Shapiro had told JBP that he couldn't support Milo. How low status a lobster are you if you have to take your orders from Ben Shapiro? Keep that in mind when people say that I'm jealous of Jordan Peterson. Add that to the many, many things I'm not jealous of. I don't take orders from Ben Shapiro. Apparently Jordan Peterson does. I don't even know what a Tim Hortons is. So, the thing is, it's different for people who are creators and content providers and people who are content users. The key is the content users are the people who keep things alive. If none of you would show up when I come on to YouTube, I would not do this. That of course, that's precisely why YouTube is always messing with people's notifications and trying to mess around with the algorithm to disfavor people that it doesn't like, because they want to prevent people from seeing it and supporting it and so forth. But the more people that come to unauthorized, the more people that go to Minds and to Gab and to Social Galactic and all the other options, IDCA, etc., the better off everyone's going to be. Centralization is a nightmare. Centralization inevitably leads to sclerosis and abuse and the persecution of bad thinkers. This is normal whenever you have a high level of centralization. You're never going to be able to hold Facebook to account unless you are a large national government. Trump could do it. Trump should do it. If I were President Trump, I would immediately enact all kinds of antitrust and various other investigations of Facebook, Twitter, Alphabet, etc. Because the level of of power they possess, the level of influence they possess, and the way that they abuse it is much more significant than any monopoly that's been broken up in the past, from Standard Oil to AT&T. AT&T did not AT&T did not mistreat its customers the way that the big social media companies do, and yet they were broken up. So the thing that's a bit annoying about this is that this is something that's fundamentally important, not only to the president's supporters, but also to his campaign. So, I'm glad to see that his son, who frankly I think would make a fantastic president, Donald Trump Jr., it's interesting to see that he's begun to comment on this. It would be good to see him take point on it. Let's see. No, it's not Robert Jackson. It's not true. Joe Rogan did not die. It's just that he can't be seen by the naked eye. You need a microscope, possibly a quantum microscope to see him, but he's not actually dead. Let's see here. Powerful JRE says, Vox, I heard you talking about my spin kicks. I'm a point fighter. Come at me, bro. I was Owen's daddy till he called me a toe. He'll turn on you too. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. See, unlike all these media people, I have all the same friends that I've always had. I'm still on good terms with the guys from Psychosonic from 20 years ago. I'm not one of those people who I'm still friends with Roosh, with Milo, with Cerno. I'm still on perfectly good terms with Stefan. I don't get caught up in this drama and people turning on people and so forth. So, you can save your warnings. Not everybody acts like a 12-year-old girl. Let's see here. The Wall Going Up says, hey, Vox, do you think the average person here can learn to read as close to fast as you do? No. If they simply read more consistently, or is there a limit based on intelligence? I don't know that it actually has anything to do with intelligence. I suspect it might, because the only person I knew who read as fast as I do is my best friend, who actually is a little bit smarter than I am, and he actually doesn't read that fast anymore, because he got tired of blowing through his books so fast when he was like about 10 or 12, and actually taught himself to read more slowly, and he hasn't been able to get back to reading fast. So that's why I'm very skeptical that you can just teach yourself to do it. I think it's something that tends to come naturally or not. Oh, you asked the same question there twice, the Wall Going Up. So please ask another question, and we'll consider it a super chat. Mitch says, I admire your loyalty, Vox. I don't know why you would ever behave any other way. I don't see any advantage in behaving any other way. And if you notice, there's a lot of people who know me from my past. How many people come forward and say bad things about me? Not very many, not really anybody. No, I'm not saying that there aren't plenty of things that people couldn't say if they wanted to. that would certainly make me appear in a less than perfect light. But the point is that just treat your friends well. It's not that hard. I fundamentally don't understand this mentality where you treat the people close to you like crap because you seem to think they have to take it. And then you act all charming and nice to people that you don't even know. How does that make any sense? You know? I mean, why on earth would you have somebody who helps you loyally for years and you finally get to the point where you can start paying for stuff, so you hire somebody else? You know, people do that kind of crap all the time, and I do not understand it. But the important thing to remember about loyalty, and I've been asked about this on several occasions because, you know, my followers, my fans, whatever you want to call them, you know, specifically the VFM and the Dread Ilk, you know, they are ferociously loyal. I mean, you know, it's almost ominous how loyal they are. You know, I spend, people are like, people say, you know, oh, you know, you're so awful because you sick the VFM on people. And I'm always like, I spend most of my time trying to hold them back. You know, I mean, they live for the conflict. You know, so I mean, I think they find it tremendously frustrating that people mostly leave me alone now. You know, thank God for Indiegogo. Give them something to chew on. But anyhow, loyalty has to go both ways. And, you know, now it's not possible for me to be there for 5,000 people the way that those 5,000 people are there for me. But I do try to support people and support the followers and look out for them where I can, where we can. I mean, that's why we're talking about Bounding Into Comics being deplatformed. And, you know, I'd encourage you to visit their site. I'm going to put up a post on the blog about this, and you can visit their site. And if some of the stuff that they're covering, you know, whether it's the Marvel movies or the Archaven comics or whatever, if that's of any interest to you, you know, I hope you'll start to follow them, because they're not going to be able to use Facebook to reach you. And so, again, we have to find different platforms. There's really nothing to tell about the business story of creating an unauthorized. You know, we just did it because we knew that it was a matter of time before people started getting deplatformed significantly. Alex Jones had just been deplatformed, and so we started working on it. And we were not anywhere near ready. We still haven't even gotten our apps out. We weren't anywhere near ready when YouTube demonetized Owen. And so, you know, he called me up and said, "Can we go live today?" And I said, "Are you crazy?" Because he's losing his mind. There's evidence. He is losing his mind. He said we should go live. And I told him, that was probably not a good idea. And he said, "Well, let's just do it." So I spent the next 2 hours frantically making covers for all the videos that I'd already uploaded, and then told him to go ahead and announce it. I think I may have even gone on his stream or something to help him announce it. And it's been going amazingly well. I mean, we've got thousands of subscribers already. You know, many of you here I know are subscribers, and I very much appreciate that. In fact, I'm going to take this opportunity to announce the next program, the next show on Unauthorized. It's going to be available to everybody, but there will also be a special subscription set up for the creator, and I'm very pleased to be able to say that it's going to be the legend Chuck Dixon on comics, and he's a legend in the industry. He knows everything about it. He's been involved in it for something like 30 years, and he's the most published comic book writer ever. And so, Western comic writer ever. I think there's some manga guy in Japan that has like some absolutely absurd number of pages written. But the thing is that he is a living history of the comic industry. He is an amazing person to work with. I've learned an incredible amount from talking to him. His productivity is astonishing. It's kind of funny because he sends me these finished scripts and new stuff with this slightly triumphant, slightly mocking tone, because he knows it drives me crazy that he cranks his stuff out so much faster than I do. So my usual responses are, I hate you, which I'm guessing is not the usual thing that you get from your publisher and so forth. But anyhow, I've already seen some of the first stuff he's done. It's cool. It's interesting. And I think that all the Arkhaven fans are going to love it. And because he's not just talking about our projects, he's talking about history, he's talking about artists, he's talking about the theory of writing. He's a really smart guy. And even if you're not particularly into comics, I think you're going to enjoy the stuff that he's doing. So, let's see here. 6 Gorillion Sea Monkeys says, comics are of little value, barring propaganda for the mob. You're absolutely wrong. Comics are the seeds of movies, because people who make movies don't read. Why do you think that there's all these movies that are made from nothing comics with no serious following? It's because a comic is essentially a storyboard for a movie. I was really astonished when we first started publishing comics. We've got hundreds of books published. And the only time that we've ever been contacted by movie production people is a couple people, over time that have been interested in my books in particular. But we've got all these other great books. Never been contacted about any of them. Within 2 weeks of publishing our third comic, we'd had like 5 or 6 different movie production companies and people contact us, say, oh, we're really interested in what you're doing. We might be interested in working with you guys. We're like, what is going on? Some of the books we publish would be phenomenal movies. I mean, The Promethean and the Missionaries would be the funniest movie in any year that they come out. But, movie people don't read. They're visual. So comics are visual. That's why they are basically seeds of movies. So, and keep in mind when you try to do the whole, comics are irrelevant and kiddie stuff and blah, blah, blah. Try to keep in mind that I write 900-page fantasy novels. I'm more... my favorite authors are Umberto Eco, Hermann Hesse, and Haruki Murakami. And Murakami is the only one that I don't read in the original language. So I'm more of a literary snob than you will ever be. But, it's, it's just something that, it's just something that you need to think about in context. Because frankly, I felt the same way. It turns out that I actually enjoy writing comics. I never thought I would. But, I have a different perspective on them now that I've seen firsthand the complexities and the challenges in creating them. So let's see here. Yeah, you're not changing the subject. You're banned for life. C. Robin says, patiently waiting for the investment announcement. Okay, actually, I have some news on the investment subject that may be considered bad by some of you, which is I was incorrect about the number of people who will be allowed to invest at the minimum levels. We're only going to be able to have 500 people, and there is a reasonable chance that it is going to fill up very, very fast from the Archaven backers alone. So that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. There are some other factors involved that may make it possible to do more than that, but we'll just have to see. And but other than that, everything's going really well. Everything's going much better than I would have anticipated, and so I'm very much looking forward to being able to make the announcement and so forth. Let's see. Stone Papa Smurf enjoyed my review of the Avengers movie. Smart Alex says, can I send a $1,500 super chat? Happy Kitty, I'm not going to ban you if you're just bringing up other subjects. There's a difference between, going a bit off topic and actually trying to derail it. Quasimodo says, are you going to auction those 500 places to the highest bidders? No, not at all. In fact, you have to understand that the limits are not imposed by us. The limits are imposed by the law. And so the more high-end investors we have, the more high-end investors we have, the more flexible we can be on the bottom end. Static says, why have a minimum investment amount? It's very simple. We're only allowed to have 500 investors. And so in order to make sure that we get to the specific level that we need to be at, we have to make sure that the numbers work. So, so it'll be interesting to see how it works out. I won't be surprised if the whole thing is funded on day one. That's actually been pretty common for most of our projects. When do you think Social Galactic 2.0 will get close to takeoff? Probably 2 months would be my guess. Are psychics always inspired by Satan? I believe so, although I think that most of them are fake. It's always amusing to me how some people just seem to enjoy um, the bannings. So Ben Darling makes a good point. People ask respectful questions about other topics all the time, and I choose whether to answer them or not. That's different than trying to force me to go in a particular direction. This is funny. Vox has prey eyes. Um, I usually get described as having predator eyes, so it's interesting to hear that you think I have prey eyes. Vox bans people who are actually likely to actually bring truths to his scream. Like you? Oh, gee, that must be why I banned you. Um, what is the quickest way to make 1 million? Uh, get a job. Get a job at Goldman Sachs. Um, oh no, I have. I wasn't avoiding any super chats. Unauthorized is going extremely well. Uh, if you're not a subscriber yet, I'm very confident that you will be soon. Okay, I missed a couple super chats. I know. Codependent says, "How do you write moral and teachings of truth into a story without being didactic and propagandistic?" That's a great question, and in fact, I had to learn that over time. If you read my first books, The War in Heaven, especially, I did not know how to do that. And so the book is a little bit more didactic than I would have liked. What didactic means is that you're basically nakedly making a point, and the story is there to make the point rather than the point being made within the context of the story. The best example of a didactic writer would be Ayn Rand, the fiction of Ayn Rand, The Fountainhead. That's just purely didactic fiction. William S. Lynn's Victoria is another good example of it. So the way that you avoid that is you have to find a character or characters and have them be the representation of that morality, those teachings, etc. But what's important is you can't just make them, a Mary Sue. You can't just have everything exist to serve them. They have to be a genuine character with genuine motivations, and they have to be treated fairly, just like any other character. If you want the story, they have to serve the story rather than the story serving them. Will the alt hero movie be cartoon anime or real actors? It's not going to be cartoons, and we know what we're doing with the budget. Joey spent $2 to tell me I'm fat and bald. I think it would probably surprise you if you could see what I looked like when I'm not wearing, when it's not just my head. But I actually weigh almost exactly, I think I'm now 2 pounds above my fighting weight. If you've seen what I look like with my shirt off back in the day, not really that different now. So, the Eternal Warriors was cool. Will we ever see the Lewis children in action again? I don't think so. I've got so many other things to write. If this is too off topic, just ignore. Did you use a curriculum for homeschooling? Yes, as kind of a starter, but um, I don't remember the name. It was like something about history. Katie says, William Lane Craig, Reasonable Faith. I would like to see you guys collaborate in the future. I realized Jordan Peterson was a freak show for the first time when he interacted with William Lane Craig. He was a dick to William Lane Craig. Yeah, there's no question. There's no question at all. Macro Lens says, Hi Vox, how much internal dialogue do you have in your stories? Not very much. Let's see. Actually, I always thought it was funny when people would say things about like my being short or my being fat or whatever, because I remember this was a couple of years ago, but I remember at the time I was like, I'm exactly the height and weight of a number of NFL cornerbacks. So it's like, where are you guys getting this from? You know, it's just kind of strange. But, you know, people perceive what they perceive. It was actually, anyhow. Let's see. Why certain evenings there's so many gamoids? Well, it's pretty common on weekend evenings. Let's see. When will Vox have a shirtless stream to silence the gammas? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. My wife is already giving me enough grief about being a cam girl. Cam T says there's a couple of channels sending folks over specifically to disrupt. Their gay ops started about 2 weeks ago, as far as I can tell. It's kind of funny because, I mean, it doesn't really seem like, it actually seems like they've died down a bit over the past couple dark streams. Let's see here. Spearman Melton says, with the demise of Game of Thrones, it's been interesting to see the more normie fans decrying the feminism and SJW narratives. It's encouraging. Oh yeah, it is. I mean, the thing is that as they always do, the left has pushed it too far, and you know, it's too much, it's boring, it's annoying, and people are sick of it, and that's why they're going to flock to alternatives. How much for you to do the Ricardo Milos dance? I don't dance for money. So, all right. Well, it's late, so I'm going to cut this one a bit short. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out Bounding into Comics when you get a chance. If you are a Archaven backer, check your email tomorrow. You're probably going to be interested in reading it. And I will look forward to seeing you all at the next Darkstream. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.